Hi students. The second selection you'll be reading today from the Close Reader is the speech from the Democratic National Convention. I want to point your attention to this area right here that discusses who John Lewis is, as it's a good idea to understand who is giving this speech. John Lewis was born in Alabama in 1940. He was a student at Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee, when the civil rights movement gained momentum. As a college student, he studied the philosophies of nonviolence. In 1960, he helped plan a lunch counter sit-in in Nashville that went on peacefully for a month and then ended in beatings and arrest of the protesters. Eventually, these protests were successful, and Nashville became the first major city in the South to desegregate its lunch counters. Lewis has served as the U.S. representative of Georgia's 5th Congressional District since his election to Congress in 1986. In his speech to the Democratic National Convention, delivered in Charlotte, North Carolina in 2012, John Lewis talks about the progress America has made since he made an earlier trip to Charlotte in 1961. Speech from the Democratic National Convention, speech by John Lewis. I first came to this city in 1961, the year Barack Obama was born. I was one of the 13 original Freedom Riders. We were on a bus ride from Washington to New Orleans trying to test a recent Supreme Court ruling that banned racial discrimination on buses crossing state lines and in the stations that served them. Here in Charlotte, a young African-American rider got off the bus and tried to get a shoe shine in a so-called white waiting room. He was arrested and taken to jail. On that same day, we continued on to Rock Hill, South Carolina, about 25 miles. From here, when my seatmate, Albert Bigelow, and I tried to enter a white waiting room, we were met by an angry mob that beat us and left us lying in a pool of blood. Some police officers came up and asked us whether we wanted to press charges. We said, no, we come in peace, love, and nonviolence. We said our struggle was not against individuals, but against unjust laws and customs. Our goal was true freedom for every American. Since then, America has made a lot of progress. We are a different society than we were in 1961. And in 2008, we showed the world that a true promise of America when we elected President Barack Obama. A few years ago, a man from Rock Hill, inspired by President Obama's election, decided to come forward. He came to my office in Washington and said, I am one of the people who beat you. I want to apologize. Will you forgive me? I said, I accept your apology. He started crying. He gave me a hug. I hugged him back, and we both started crying. This man and I don't want to go back. We want to move forward. Brothers and sisters, do you want to go back? Or do you want to keep America moving forward? My dear friends, your vote is precious, almost sacred. It is the most powerful nonviolent tool we have to create a more perfect union. Not too long ago, people stood in unmovable lines. They had to pass a so-called literacy test, pay a poll tax. On one occasion, a man was asked to count the number of bubbles in a bar of soap. On another occasion, one was asked to count the jelly beans in a jar, all to keep them from casting their ballot. Today, it is unbelievable that there are officials still trying to stop people from voting. They are changing the rules, cutting polling hours, and imposing requirements intended to suppress the vote. I've seen this before. I've lived this before. Too many people struggled, suffered, and died to make it possible for every American to exercise their right to vote. And we have come too far together to ever turn back. So we must not be silent. We must stand up, and speak out. We must march to the polls like never before. We must come together and exercise our sacred right.